This is the screencast for K-12 World Languages and Dual Language Immersion so that you can be ready for school year 2025-2026. I'm Mara Kobe, and I am the K-12 World Languages and Dual Language Immersion Curriculum Specialist. Here's how to contact me. I promise I'll share this information with you at the end as well. So let's work backwards. Even if you are a K-5 or a middle school specialist or scheduler or counselor, you should understand with what the end in mind needs to be. So the UNC system changed their admissions requirements starting last year. And so they no longer are requiring 2 years of a world language just to meet the entrance requirements. However, they still strongly recommend completion of at least 2 years of a world language. And then this is from UNC's system directly. And while the minimum course requirements serve as the cornerstone for the admissions policy so that they are not putting barriers in front of certain students or all students, they still are encouraging students to pursue a challenging and rigorous high school curriculum that is aligned with their academic and career objectives. And just because you do the minimum, that doesn't guarantee admission. So those are things to consider. Just because the requirement word went away doesn't mean that world languages went away. So students should be taking the most rigorous courses available. They should ensure that they complete an academically challenging course load their senior year. And we'll talk about what that means for world languages. And then again, they're encouraged to complete at least 2 years of a world language. Our district feels the same way. We still recommend that students complete at least 2 years of a world language because the UNC system only represents 16 institutions out of all the possible post-secondary opportunities there could be for students. And CMS students should have the opportunity to attend any institution that they like. And we don't want to limit those opportunities. And many competitive universities, even within the state of North Carolina or just over the border into Virginia or South Carolina, they're looking for students who studied at least 2 years of a language. Some are looking for students who study 3 or more. So what languages can we offer in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools? Well, we have 7 different languages we can offer. We have the opportunity to offer American Sign Language in person, Chinese, French, German, Japanese, Latin, Spanish, and then of course we have our Spanish for Native or Heritage Speakers pathway, which is an accelerated pathway and takes students into more advanced courses in a shorter time. We do have dual language immersion in 5 of these languages, and we offer AP, IB, and even Cambridge opportunities for many of these languages as well. And in some of our schools, for example, our PYP-IB schools, we also offer exploratory Spanish. That's what the Flex may be. And there are a few other schools that also offer Spanish as a special in K-5. Here's the big news. We have new North Carolina standards. We have not had new standards since the ones that were written in 2010. So they're officially out, but they are not going to be implemented until August of 2025, which is our next school year, which is what we're planning for. The big rock you need to be aware of is that we are looking at more rigorous exit proficiency expectations for all courses. That means that the minimum, for example, to get out of level 1 was kind of a pretty low bar, and that has been bumped up, as have all of the exit proficiency expectations for all of our programs. And this is the other big news. We are still waiting on official blessing from the State Board of Education, but it's coming. We have new honors world language courses starting this fall. So up until now, anything that was at Honors 3 or our Honors Native Speakers 2 class, anything at that level was already inherently honors and already got those quality points, and of course took you into the IB and AP courses and the Cambridge AS levels. And we've never had an honors version of level 1 or level 2 before. But starting this fall for 2025, 2026, we will now have the option of offering a standard level 1 or 2 or an honors level 1 or 2. And that also goes for the Spanish for Native Speakers 1 course, which up until now has not had an honors option. And starting next year, we will have an honors option. So I will go into more detail on this as we have more information from the state board, but this is something we definitely need to think about as we're planning. This means that our students, even the IB MYP classes, which before did not get honors credit for honors for 1 and 2, now have the opportunity to do so. So how do we schedule our students for success? Number 1, if a student does not speak that language outside of school, they don't skip levels. It does not make sense. They don't have the language proficiency to be successful by skipping into a different level. That language proficiency has to be built over time. Now, there are going to be some students who do have language experience outside of the school, which is fantastic. They may already be a heritage or native speaker of a language, even if they're not officially a multilingual learner student that's been identified. We also have students who did dual language immersion, but then didn't stay in the program, but they are coming to you with high proficiency in a language. And we have students who've studied abroad and they have gained some language proficiency. If that's the case, those students might actually be more interested in the credit by demonstrated mastery process to get credit for their language. We have students who've been getting credit for Ukrainian and Russian and Vietnamese and all kinds of languages we don't offer in the district because they come to us and we want to value that language that they bring with us, they bring to us from home. Students should not be placed into level 1 of a brand new language after midterms have already taken place. If they've missed half the course, they don't get to jump into level 1. That is not going to work. They need to wait until the opportunity to take the course in its entirety is available to them. We do not want to set them up for failure. That does not make any sense. Another thing to keep in mind, we don't want to have gaps of an entire year or 2 years between, let's say, level 1 and level 2 or level 2 and then level 3. It's just like any sort of skill. If you have an athletic skill or a music skill and you don't use it for over a year or even 2 years, you're not going to come in to that next opportunity at the same level you were when you finished your previous course. So we want to make sure that we are giving opportunities for advanced language pathways, especially for students who start their sequence in 7th grade. And more selective universities are looking for students who do start their world language pathways earlier and continue on that pathway all the way through 11th and 12th grade. They're not looking for students to start level 1 in 11th grade. They want to see that students have gotten to level 3, honors 4, the IB or the AP levels. That's what they're looking for if they are in the more competitive universities. And just taking level 1 and 2, even though we're going to bump up the proficiency expectations a little bit, that's not going to lead to any usable language proficiency in the world of work or the military. And so we need to make sure those students have the opportunity to develop those language skills so that they'll be useful in their post-secondary opportunities. We do have a whole document with an infographic to explain opportunities and how to think about placing multilingual learners in world language courses. I'm not going to go into detail here in this screencast, but it is going to be linked in the document for you, and I will share this also during my breakout session on November 21st. All right, so let's think about high school. We've already talked about what the universities or post-secondary might be thinking about, and we know that there's going to be some changes with honors opportunities at the lower levels. We do not schedule level 1 and level 2 combined with each other or any other class. That does not work. Students will not be successful. The teachers will not be able to build proficiency for all their students if the students are only getting half of the instruction that they need because the attention is divided. Also, if somebody is in a standard level world language class, they cannot be combined with an honors or an AP, IB, or Cambridge AS course because the students are getting weighted points in those honors and advanced courses, and standard are not, so you should not be combining them in the same room at the same time. And the big thing is if you do have students who are in an IB pathway and you have some students that you wanted to that are not officially in the IB pathway, but that's the only time you can offer that Honors 4 and IB SL1 class, please do not code them differently because the grade points are weighted differently. Please code all of those students as IBSL1, even if those students originally slated for Honors 4 are not going for their IB diploma full scale. They should be coded in the same course code because they'll be doing the same work as the IBSL1 students. Also thinking about IB, keep in mind that if they're in the 11th grade, that's when they start the SL, the standard level, or the HL, the more advanced level of the IB diploma program courses and working towards those assessments. So that means they have to have successfully completed Honors 3 by the end of 10th grade. So if you have some 10th graders who are in the IB pathway in your building, please make sure that they will successfully complete Honors 3 by the end of 10th grade. Otherwise, they're going to need to take it in summer school if they plan to be in the IB diploma program levels in the 11th grade. So please be aware of that. All right, so we're still working our way backwards. What about going from middle school into high school? We have a lot of different scenarios. So if we're just talking about what's required from the instructional tenets, every middle school and K-8 in all of CMS must offer a world language course for high school credit. They have to offer the opportunity. 7th graders usually take level 1 part A. 8th graders usually take level 1 part B. If you don't have enough students to offer the course, instead of just not offering the opportunity, especially if you feed into a potential IB pathway, please look at NCVPS as an option for these courses. It's not ideal, but it's better than closing a door and denying an opportunity to students. When you do schedule these at the middle school, you cannot combine Part A with Part B. You cannot combine exploratory or middle school French or Spanish, which is the same as exploratory. You cannot combine those with Part A or Part B. And you can't combine Spanish for native speakers with a traditional level 1 course. These are all very separate courses. They have their own curricula. Please do not combine those courses at all. Now for our non-credit courses, there's something that you might see listed as exploratory 6 for French or Spanish or whatever. And then you might see something that says middle school French or middle school Spanish. They are the exact same course. They just use different codes because the exploratory 6 is only allowed for 6th graders, whereas the middle school French or Spanish could be offered to 6th, 7th, or 8th graders if you were to choose to do so. It's the same course, it's the same curriculum, they just have different codes, and it can only be taken one time. So if a student took it exploratory 6th grade, they may not take middle school Spanish in 7th or 8th grade because they've already taken the course. It had a different name. So this is the traditional middle school sequence in high school. Some students will take the 6th grade exploratory. It's not a prerequisite, but it's an opportunity. In schools that offer more than one language, the exploratory might be 9 weeks of French and 9 weeks of Spanish so that they can choose which language to pursue when they go for their high school credit starting in 7th grade. 7th graders usually take level 1 part A. 8th graders usually take level 1 part B, and then that means they should go directly into level 2 in the 9th grade so that we are avoiding gaps. They have to successfully complete part A to even be registered for part B. You should never have students in part B that did not take part A. And they have to successfully complete both to get the full credit. Now let's talk about our heritage and native Spanish speakers. And there may be some who are also native or heritage French speakers and so on. But please do not put a native Spanish speaking student into an exploratory or non-credit Spanish course or a regular Spanish one. That is not going to be a recipe for success. If you do not offer the Spanish for Native Speakers course in your building, but you have these students that could take it, maybe consider putting them into the North Carolina Virtual Public School online Spanish 2 as an option. You could also do this if you had a native French speaker and they wanted to study French rather than Spanish 1A and Spanish 1B. Slide 24 is 2 slides from now, and we'll look at some different options of what that might look like. In addition to also having students who might be heritage speakers, there are dual language immersion students that would be coming. They may leave their K-8 program, or they might be coming from a K-5 program and showing up at your middle school. And you need to be aware that these students are coming with high levels of Spanish proficiency. So Charlotte East Language Academy is a K-8, Collinswood Language Academy is K-8, Huntingtown Farms is K-5, Oaklawn Language Academy is K-8. Keep in mind, these students may choose to go to an IB middle school or any other middle school and not stay in those K-8 DLI programs, but they then do not belong in an exploratory and then level 1 part A and B because their language is too far advanced for that scenario. So what do we do with those students if they come out of a K-5 DLI program or they're a heritage speaker? I've given you 4 possible scenarios on this slide. So it could be that, and I'm going to try to make myself a little smaller so you can see the whole slide. It could be that they don't take anything in 6th grade, and then maybe if you do offer native speakers, you'll offer that part A in 7th grade, part B in 8th grade, and then they can go right into some honors courses in the 9th grade. For those that don't offer the native speakers courses, you might offer to put those students in NCVPS level 2 in 7th grade, which would allow them to take NCVPS level 3 in the 8th grade. And that would put them at an honors 4 in the 9th grade. That might be too accelerated of a pathway. So maybe they don't take any world language until 8th grade, but then you put them in NCVPS level 2 in the 8th grade, putting them at level 3 in the 9th grade, and so on. And then what if they come into an IB school? And we've had a lot of students come from, let's say, Huntingtown Farms into Randolph IB. So there are a couple different opportunities. In the 6th grade, they could take NCVPS level 1 because they're required to take language all 3 years that they're in that middle school IB program. They could start with NCVPS level 1 just to polish their academic language and get them adjusted to taking online courses if they wanted that. Or they could take exploratory of a different language. So for example, Randolph offers French, Latin, and Spanish. If they come out of a Spanish DLI program, they could do exploratory Latin or exploratory French and then figure out what they'd like to do for 7th and 8th grade. If they wanted to go back to their original heritage language or their DLI language and native speakers as an option, then you have basically a combination of a choice of scenario A or scenario B, and then that puts them at various places in the 9th grade. Again, if you have questions, you can reach out to me at any time because each student might be a little bit different. Now, for those students who do stay in their K-8 programs all the way through 8th grade, that means they're going to need advanced courses in high school. And we need to think about that as well. So again, we mentioned Charlotte East, Collinswood, and Oaklawn are K-8 dual language immersion programs. When those students go into their high school continuation opportunities, whether they stay in the magnet program or go to a different high school, they're not going to start over in level 1 or 2. They're going to be ready for honors 3 or Spanish for native speakers honors 3 or so on. And we'll look at that scenario in a moment. And then we have students who are at the North Academy of World Languages or the South Academy of International Languages. They may have been in the dual language immersion program. They may have added a 3rd language, or they may have come in middle school into those programs and taken at least 2 years of Chinese, French, German, Japanese, or Spanish, depending on where they are and what programs they're in. So those are all things to consider when they come to your school at the high school level, and where we need to meet them and ensure that they have access to advanced pathways. So what does that mean? I'm moving my head out of the way again as much as I can. Most of those K-8 dual language immersion students will go into honors 3 in the 9th grade, regardless of which language or school they came from. And these are the three scenarios they may have had going on in 6th through 8 and where they should land in 9th grade. Now for your super high flyers, the top 10% of students who've done really well in the coursework and on their stamp tests and so on, they might get a recommendation to go to Honors 4 instead of Honors 3, but that's going to be the exception, not the rule. All right, what about opportunities that for language credits and language study that are not part of CMS? Let's look at a few of those. So there are only a few new credit options available online. Anything through NCVPS for world languages is approved. Absolutely. Arabic, sign language, Chinese, French, German, Japanese, Latin, Russian, or Spanish. Notice they are no longer offering any AP courses at all. And certain languages only have 2 or 3 levels. So you need to be aware of that if a student wants to start that pathway. The ones that are highlighted in yellow, proceed with caution because they do not include any ongoing weekly interpersonal speaking opportunities. So please proceed with caution with those. Edgenuity. They did away with their AP French and AP Spanish. So the only approved new coursework through Edgenuity for any world language is Sign Language 1 and 2. That's it. If you want to know about other online language options, please reach out to me and Amanda Akoff, and we will try to work with you. We have been offering opportunities for advanced German through a special contracted teacher. We don't know if that will continue for 25-26 at this time. So reach out if you're not sure. And then for students who have already maxed out all of the high-level language courses in their high school, usually at least Honors 4 or AP, and in some places maybe even AP Literature. If they've exhausted every possible course in their building and they would like to apply to be in the UNCC High Flyers program to take an advanced 3000 level language course, it is a possibility to have that dual credit pathway. The Advanced Studies Department has those forms of what needs to be filled out before the student registers with UNC Charlotte and how they would go about getting reimbursed if they're successful in that course. Funding for these opportunities is on a first come, first served basis. And again, that's handled through the Advanced Studies office. If you have questions, I can at least try to advise you, but I will still turn you over to Advanced Studies for more information. And then we have the opportunity for students to take some CPCC dual credit courses. I want you to be aware that the courses that are, let's say, Spanish 111 or French 111, that is the exact same course according to DPI as level 1. And so I've put these up here. 112 is the same as level 2. 211 is the same as Honors 3. 212 is the same as Honors 4. So if you've got a student who's already taken levels 1 and 2 and they're like, oh, I'm going to get some advanced coursework and I'm going to take this 111 and 112 class, they're basically taking the same course over, but yes, they're getting dual credit for it, but they're taking the same course over. It will not meet the requirements for their Global Languages Endorsement, our seal of biliteracy. We'll talk about that in a moment, but I just want you to be aware that if they take Spanish 1, Spanish 2, and then they take Spanish 111, and Spanish 112, DPI looks at it like they've only taken 2 courses, not 4. And so that's not going to help them get that Global Languages Endorsement. And I've linked in a crosswalk for World Language and Community College equivalent courses that have their current Power School course codes. Obviously, when we move to Infinite Campus, I will get you an updated list of what those equivalency course codes are. And then we have opportunities where students are garnering credits from outside of CMS, outside of community college, and not through UNC Charlotte. We have some memorandums of understanding to accept concurrent credits from schools like the Bulgarian Language School, from Hebrew High, Japanese Language School, and the Canada Language School. Then there are some charter and independent schools like Charlotte Jewish Day School, which offers Hebrew in middle school for them. Charlotte Lab offers Spanish and Chinese. Metrolina also, I believe Metrolina has Spanish and Chinese. Socrates has opportunities for Greek and Spanish. So if they're coming from a charter or independent school, they usually bring a transcript and we accept those as transfer credits. For the ones where we have an MOU in place, like Hebrew High, Japanese Language School, and so on, we accept those concurrent credits and add them into PowerSchool. They count in their GPA. Transfer credits, you treat transfer credits the way you treat any other transfer credit from any other institution. If you've got questions, please, of course, reach out to me. All right, so I did mention the Global Languages Endorsement, the North Carolina Seal of Biliteracy. Even though CMS is not paying as much attention to endorsements, this is still a state seal of biliteracy. This is something that is recognized all over North Carolina and all over the United States and outside of the United States. So I am still going to talk about the Global Languages Endorsement because this is a huge credential for students to take with them. What is new this year? Well, let me start with what's not new. They still have to meet certain requirements for English, as well as at least one other language for it to count as a seal of biliteracy. We have students who are actually earning it for multiple languages in addition to English, which is why it's kind of fun that it's a Global Languages Endorsement. I know that we have students who are potentially going to earn it for, like one single student is potentially going to earn it for Ukrainian, Russian, and Portuguese in addition to English. So this is a really amazing opportunity. So on the English side, it used to be that there was only one opportunity, that they had to take 4 levels of their English courses with an unweighted GPA of just the English courses of 2.5 or higher. There's a new opportunity now. Okay, they could do CDM credit for English 4 if they had. I don't know that CMS would condone that, but that is another pathway from the state. This is the most exciting part right here, that they could meet or exceed an English proficiency score on an external exam like the SAT or the ACT. There's a whole list of what that could be. It could be an AP English exam as well. For the world language options, they still have the option of earning it with the unweighted GPA in that language of 2.5 or greater by taking level 4 or higher. Notice it doesn't say 4 courses, it says completing level 4 or higher. They could start their sequence at level 3 if they came in and spoke the language at that level. They could earn CDM credit for level 4 or higher. Or they could achieve intermediate mid proficiency or higher on a nationally or internationally norm referenced external exam. The change on our side for world languages, it used to be intermediate low. Now it has to be at the intermediate mid proficiency or higher. So there's a link to FAQs here on the next slide. This is a handy dandy infographic. There's a QR code for you to go ahead and download that as well. And this explains the English and the world language requirements and will take you to the list of the tests that count for both sides. And in case you got really curious, this is every possible piece of information you could possibly know and want to have access to be able to explain this and help find students who could earn the Global Languages Endorsement, our seal of biliteracy. Again, intermediate mid proficiency on the world language side is now required as of this year, even though our new standards don't go into effect until next year. All right, so we mentioned credit by demonstrated mastery a few times. I don't own that. That is owned by Amanda Akoff in the Advanced Studies Department. When we're going to do credit by demonstrated mastery for world languages, it's usually for students who already speak that language at home. It could also be appropriate for a former dual language immersion student that didn't bring any high school credit with them and they'd like to take a test to demonstrate that they don't need to take, let's say, levels 1 and 2 and they want to have credit and move to a higher level. Great, that's an opportunity. If they've lived and studied in another country for over a year, or they have any sort of extensive language experience outside of the school and they want to go ahead and get credit for that language, great. The CDM process is for those students. It is not for the students who say, you know what, I just don't feel like taking level 1. I'm going to get a private tutor and I'm going to take the test. Those students usually do not demonstrate enough proficiency to get credit to move into level 2 or higher. So that is, we do not encourage non-native speakers or students with no outside experience with that language to take the CDM test for a language. They're usually not successful. All right, so we take the stamp test at the end of level 1, at the end of level 2, at the end of all our heritage immersion and our native speakers 1 and 2 courses. And we also use the stamp test for our credit by demonstrated mastery process here in CMS. And those scores, if they're going to count towards the global languages endorsement or be counted for CDM, we have to put their scores into what is now PowerSchool. Eventually, we'll have a new guide on how to do that in Infinite Campus. This particular slide right here has all of the documents with screenshots of how to do that for your registrar or whoever would do this in your building. If you have questions, I'm happy to send you the same documents as well. And then I've just given you a quick snapshot of what stamp score would be considered intermediate mid, intermediate high, advanced low, advanced mid, and so on. And again, to meet the global languages endorsement, the students have to demonstrate intermediate mid as of this school year. All right, so who do you call if you have questions about world languages, dual language immersion, global languages endorsement? That's me. If you have questions about credit by demonstrated mastery and virtual learning, you'll go to Amanda, but if it's about a world language CDM or virtual learning, you can always copy me as well. And for UNCC High Flyers, I believe Caitlin Brick is the one who is handling that in advanced studies. If we're not sure, reach out to me and we will find out. And here's how to find me. And again, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and end this recording.